Good morning. I'm happy to be here with you today. I think you got my title. I'm one of the executives at Cedars-Sinai, and I'm going to speak to you about our hospital and how we are placed in America. So I hope you'll get to know us a little more today in the spirit of friendship and collaboration. A little bit about our international. It's very important for us to be part of a global community. And of course, the topic and the theme, as we see all around us in 2024, is the technology and innovation, and we will address some of them. I am not a technical person per se, but I am a vascular surgeon. And inherently, as we grow up in our careers, we're highly technical. So technology is always part of what we do, tinkering with toys and things.
He estado como jugando, utilizando aparatos tecnológicos. Entonces vamos a tomar un momento para entender cómo nuestro hospital está situado en la mitad de Los Ángeles, en el occidente de Los Ángeles, en Beverly Hills. Creo que ustedes han escuchado Beverly Hills, es un barrio muy prominente y esta
our local community has really been a big factor in us becoming a well-known and a highly successful healthcare enterprise. If you is this it may not be sorry. I guess that's not a pointer, but you know, we started in 1902 as a small house for tuberculosis. But in fact, Cedars-Sinai today is one of the youngest and really most dynamic hospitals in America, only about 50 years old. Two community hospitals, Cedars of Lebanon and Mount Sinai, had formed because at that time in this neighborhood, both Jewish doctors and Jewish citizens and patients had difficulty in access to care. And they formed these Jewish foundation hospitals. So people think of us as a Jewish hospital, but it's really an origin. We are a non-denominational leading academic medical center today. And you'll see a picture on the panel there. Over here, you could see Ronald Reagan in 1971 or 72 inaugurating our hospital, which exists today. So it's still a very young hospital. And on the bottom panels, you see the main Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, and the latest is our Children's Hospital, which is embedded within our hospital itself. The last time the U.S. News ranked U.S. hospitals in 2023, we were number 2 in the country. It's an unbelievable feat for a community hospital origin. We don't have a university. We're the only one in the top 20 that doesn't have a university, but we have many academic programs. And we'll talk about innovation and technology, how it's embedded in our DNA and our culture. But in this year's rankings, we are in the honor roll, and we have several specialties, as you can see there, that are ranked in the top 10 in the United States. So I want to take a moment to describe mission and vision statements. They are important, I think, and it gives you a subtle but detailed eye into the soul of an organization. And you see for us, the top point I want to make, we give exceptional health care. We are still fundamentally a healthcare and a provider for our community in a very urban environment in Los Angeles. However, we are also known for a very high quality care, and I'll show you some data to support that. But if you see in our 12 core values, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about one of them is our patient centricity and centric care and our innovation. This is a detailed slide. The important is not all the bars and numbers here, but what is actually almost mind-blowing there's about 400 teaching hospitals in America that provides a yearly report on the survival or 30-day mortality for these very important conditions: pneumonia, coronary artery bypass, COPD, stroke, heart attack, and heart failure. And as you can see from the data, we are above average in all of them, but in some like pneumonia, stroke, heart attack, and heart failure, we are by far to the left of the curve. We have the best chance for survival in our hospital. And this is an incredible effort. It has to do with not only people, but process, and of course, our culture of innovation and using technology. So let's look at a moment about international, because I want to express, and I certainly represent international, but we are on a journey of becoming continuously local, but also global. And healthcare is always at once leaders in healthcare talk about, are we for our local community? The fact is today it's a global one. And our mission for international reflects the institution's mission and vision. We don't have a different objective, and we're the and beyond in our mission statement. We have two main objectives. One is to take care of patients wherever they are, many of whom come to Los Angeles, but some of whom may go to partner hospitals. And the second is we call global services, which is a bit more in sharing our knowledge, our experience, and collaborating, whether it's in research or education or in clinical care delivery. This is a heat map. We do get over 2,500 patients every year from more than 100 countries. It reflects the global city that Los Angeles is, but also reflects a bit of we're not dissimilar from others you might know, like Mayo and Cleveland Clinic, where patients come often from our neighboring countries, from the the Gulf countries, as well as the Pacific Rim. We are having a growing footprint in South America. We have our first project, which I'll show you in Ecuador. On this one, you could see where we have active offices or projects, where projects for me means we have long-term relationships with either use of name or management or just stacking a series of consulting objectives. So here are some of our global offices. The middle one is the one we've had for well over 10 years in Mexico City. It's a beautiful office. It doesn't have clinical care. It serves patient referrals, education activities, and marketing. Similarly, in Singapore, it's embedded in a concierge medicine practice, and as well in Doha, where it's actually in a full hospital that's branded by ours. So we continue to want to place assets and become part of other communities. And this is our team here, which has grown since 2019 to this year as our retreat last month. Mr. Luis Arango is here. He's Colombian. He's a very important part of our team. We're proud of him, and he's part of this. Our workforce now is not only local in LA, about 35 of our 50 team members, 15 are working overseas in different capacities. Why do U.S. academic medical centers engage in this global healthcare? And I've had this version of this slide since I've been involved in international business, maybe 15 years as a faculty when I was at Johns Hopkins. And these are very simple concepts. One, of course, we want to attract patients with complex conditions that we want to provide hope where they cannot find it anywhere else. We want to develop our international reputation to drive that. We want to provide certainly education and research opportunities to expand for our faculty. And I want to have an impact and lead in a global healthcare. And if I think of it purely from a research perspective, preclinical studies start with discovery in labs, wet or dry labs. And this needs to be translated in a preclinical setting. And this takes many years, whether it's in animals, in a petri dish, or whether it's on a computer. And then you can then and only test the concept in the clinical environment, in hospitals. This is we call clinical research. And to bring a drug to adoption or a device or a concept, in the past, we think of it takes almost 10 years to do that. The truth is, people don't often think about, as an individual researcher or someone who's putting a concept forward, is you need to globalize that. That's when you're really going to have impact. And I think we need formal processes to build these bridges. And that's why, from my view, it's very important to engage globally. I don't have much more. I'll get into a little bit about what Cedars-Sinai is doing on innovation front, including AI and other things. But from a global healthcare market, from my lens, I look at it from the market perspective and then the delivery, actual providers or scientists or even business folks who are thinking, how do they deliver to individual customers or patients? And I think today we are still right now in an era that I see, not still, we are newly in an era of regionalization. When you think of healthcare leaders, you don't only think of the big brands that might be in the United States or in Europe. Each region have leaders that others will turn to for knowledge and healthcare and delivery. This is happening at a rapid pace in the Americas, in Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and throughout the world. I think we're still in an era of pandemic recovery. This is not just the disease and the impact it's had on hospitals and health systems, but also, of course, as you know, the supply chain, the inflation, the economics of it. We are still grappling. All major hospitals around the world are grappling with the challenges. And of course, geopolitics. And maybe this part of the world, You might not feel it's less or protected from some of the geopolitics, but there are some fires burning around the world, and we feel that being involved globally, and it's having an impact on directly on healthcare delivery. So the burden of chronic disease is still a major problem, and also identifying the value in all the care that we do. And this is where technology is going to help answer and solve these solutions, fundamentally, in my view. AI, machine learning, digital transformation, that era, that age, as you all know, is here. And in my view, from leading one of the United States' leading hospitals, it is really driving our strategy and our thinking every day at the executive level. So with this in mind, and this is kind of alludes to the point from pulling straight out of our strategic deck for the hospital, that at the core, optimizing and enhancing our core, we must fully realize the potential of technology in the practice of medicine and the delivery of healthcare and the managing of that core business. And that starts from the academic enterprise and goes out to the care delivery of using the technology itself. So finally, on this kind of general concept, and we'll come down a little bit, is innovation is carved into our values. Now, our purpose is to heal, but we'll always seek new means to advance this purpose with imagination and enthusiasm for new ideas and methods. And I'm going to try to prove to you in some type of way how we're doing that every day at Cedars-Sinai. So first, I'll give you a few examples, and then we'll come back to sort of structure and process of how we do that. So when I think of innovation and things that are happening, the first one that comes to my mind is Clive Svensson, who is a founder and executive director of our Regenerative Medicine Institute. And I hearken back to in January 2019, as you see on the panel here, there is and if you go pull it, you'll see a lead cover story on stem cells and the promise of stem cells to cure disease. And our lab and his lab was the feature of that article. And I think that we've done many things to take, not just us, all around the world, but driving stem cell therapy to cure disease is still on the cutting edge. And ALS would be a typical one where we are getting closer, I believe, to finding real solutions for disease that has none and cripples young people around the world. We are putting organs on chips to study organs in a better way. And lastly, what they've done, and most fascinating most recently, is actually put them in space. So we're testing how these stem cells can behave, whether on a chip or not, in space and zero gravity environment. And this is getting a lot of notoriety in the press. I think from a cancer perspective and innovation in cancer, the one highlight I'd like to make, which was recently published in Nature, Dan Teodorescu is our lead of our cancer center, is driving the precision medicine by creating digital twins. I think you're all familiar with the concept and technology, but really using AI to drive information so that we can predict treatment of certain cancer types. And we've shown that early on in certain organs like pancreas and bladder. And these are some excellent publications. And I think Dan and his team are driving this throughout this innovation globally. If I shift away from a few examples of the things we're doing in specific diseases, we have a very organized structure of bringing technology, whether it exists in our own faculty and our own clinicians, to the world, but also bringing from outside back into Cedars-Sinai, we call the accelerator. And this technology has been very successful. We're driving over $60 million each year in revenue from the technology we create, over 600 active technologies. And I think that it's critical that we continue to expand this. And our accelerator actually has basically supported over 80 companies that have gone to market. And we have a competitive funding process. We're even accepting international startup companies, provide them $100,000 in investment and give them a place and a nurturing environment to bring technology to bear. This accelerator is really one of the top ones in terms of hospital-based driving healthcare technology in America and quite frankly around the world. We have aligned with some of the top similar people in Singapore and in London to bring accelerators in those parts of the world. Here's some examples. We don't have time, nor would I want to bring them examples of each of them from Singapore, from Sweden, Canada, different parts of the world. They're not just American intellectual property. I think education is critical. This would be a whole talk unto itself, but I think any hospital, leading hospital, has to educate and train providers for today, not just for tomorrow. It requires you to have leading technology and simulation centers. So we have a very state-of-the-art simulation center in our hospital. It really recreates the entire hospital environment. And any people from outside, firefighters, police officers, to trainees, residents, and students, to our own practicing physicians and nurses, are all part of this environment of continuous learning. So let's flip a little to, I am not an expert in artificial intelligence, but certainly all of us, and you will hear about it every day and are starting to apply it to our lives and into our environment. So I'll share with you how Cedars-Sinai is moving forward and some test cases of how we are using, let's just call it AI methodologies, hardwiring it into the care delivery. I'll skip this slide. Is there anyone here doesn't really know what artificial intelligence is? You can raise your hand. No one would probably raise their hand. But I'll skip the definition. When we look at AI-enabled innovation, we are creating an ecosystem within not only within Cedars-Sinai, but with peer institutions across America. It's very important in today's world to collaborate. No one can do science or healthcare or anything really in isolation. We must collaborate today. And so from our perspective, we've created a computational biomedicine and what we call the Cedars-Sinai AI Research and Education Center to drive the innovation part of it. The accelerator, which I just described, is an engine to bring companies from outside and test them. We can be a testing lab within our hospital for these technologies. Certainly our enterprise information system, or people call IT, is the skeleton or the hardwire to be able to deliver. Certainly the clinicians and the clinical departments, we have a whole department dedicated to artificial intelligence with clinical leaders who can work across service lines to bring the best ideas to bear, to practice. And of course, we have an AI council so that we can do it responsibly. Our pillars are about investing in planning, transitioning AI innovation into AI adoption, and then sound ethical use and governance is very, very important to us. We do have a governance model. I won't get into that. We certainly have policies in the hospital, but if I were to pull the key points to me to share with you, is that humans are responsible for decision making. That's priority number one. That two, we use tools as trained, not randomly, but there's a process for evaluating and developing tools and also for bringing them to our practice. And do not put patient health information or other proprietary information into publicly available tools like ChatGPT. These are basic, very core principles, but they're very, very important. I'll take a few and I'll go through them quickly, how we are using, and I probably pulled about 6 or 7 out of maybe 25 of test cases that we have actively in our hospital and our health system using. So one, of course, we got to talk about, sort of community health since the pandemic. And we did publish studies and became locally very well known about using AI algorithms to predict the flow of a sort of a viral pandemic as we recently experienced. And our models show about 85 to 95% accuracy in predicting bed needs for our flu and COVID-19 when there's surge in those seasonal variability. It's very important from a health system perspective. If I go from that systematic to the outpatient care, we are using certainly AI technology to improve the patient experience and how they feel and how you practice it, whether it's using app-based technology on your phone, but we can reduce wait times. You can do many things to automate the experience and communication with the patients, and wearable devices, and all these many things you're going to hear a lot about, I'm sure, in the conference, and you hear about daily in technology. I put that mostly in our outpatient setting. We're using also, that extends into personalized messaging direct to consumer to patients. So AI can use these, this is one of our chief medical officers, using it to send AI-driven targeted communication to patients. This is very powerful from an experience perspective. And I think these are low-hanging fruit, we call that. Certainly places like the emergency department and urgent care settings, predicting demand and surge of need for in those environments, it's very important to use algorithms and having machine learning algorithms to drive that. Sepsis, common one. We've shown a 10% improved sepsis bundle compliance. This is what we have to report to local authorities, and a 35% reduction in septic shock mortality from using algorithms. I know when I was training, 20 years ago, these were using sort of processes and trying to understand it. But now we have be able to really, that data can surge forward by using sort of AI technology. Inpatient units, how do we get more efficient? Our hospital's 900 beds licensed. Every day we have 1,000 patients trying to access the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center for inpatient care above 100% capacity. It's critical that we continuously improve our operational flow. Of course, imaging, pathology and radiology imaging. This is Barry Pressman, the chair of radiology, who's long been an advocate, and his quote is, "With experience I've had in the not so distant future, it'll almost be unthinkable to practice radiology without the assistance of solutions like AI Doc." And not only in finding problems in the body through imaging, but also being able to be more efficient and help in the workflow of patient care. This is a complex slide, but I think this unlocking the value of AI is in direct you can almost put it on a matrix of the culture of innovation. And the more innovative we are, the more we'll be able to unlock the promise and value of using these technologies. And it requires everything from a strategic approach to actually adoption. I'll skip this. I think you all recognize how complex it is, but this is kind of a cool little prediction, if you will. On the top, you will see from the years. 2 years is the first, where I say sort of the important trigger, where all these technologies are being thrown, or not thrown, but they're being put into the marketplace behind a lot of research and innovation. And I think we're now kind of reaching that peak of sort of inflated expectations, from my view, at Cedars-Sinai. And as predicted by our sort of leader, as Craig Kwiatkowski is our chief information officer and leader really of our AI, I think we'll enter this kind of trough of disillusionment, like many of technologies that changed the world, and ultimately we'll reach a plateau. And I think we're sort of on this slope now, and we can assume that the world will change a lot, but also we're still living as humans on this planet, and I think some of the values that exist need to continue. So again, this is about collaboration. Tech industry and academia must continue to collaborate like never before, and these are all the companies that we work with to bring sort of impact to patient care. Okay, I will ask this because I think everyone has. Who here has used ChatGPT in their daily life? That's pretty good, yeah. I have. So you get an understanding. We are, right now in our hospital, are actively training our doctors and nurses and administrators and everyone really in a structured rollout of how to use ChatGPT and how to embed it within our EPIC system, which is our electronic medical record. And this is you may not know this, or you may know it from reading New York Times or whatever, but this looks at the time to reach 100 million users. And if it took Google Translate 78 months and Uber 70 months, I use Spotify a lot because I like music. Every day I'm using Spotify. But if you look at TikTok, which is changing the world at nine months, and ChatGPT is 2 months. When I saw that, I was floored because I don't have kids. I think everyone who has kids and teenagers, they all see them using it for school every day. I've certainly been on it, but I'm not a daily user of ChatGPT. But I'm going to become one because I'm getting my training too. And so we use it, embedding it within our, using generative AI and EPIC into our workflow to help physician. We need to reduce the physician burnout. It's a big problem, and I'm sure it's a big problem in all areas, and not just the United States. And most of that has to do with the intense amount of documentation required by regulatory. So if we can use technologies like this to draft our messages and help with the notes, right now we're realizing though that, at least with EPIC use, there's a human element. We can't just copy paste. There's a lot that you will find mistakes. So it's trying to find the balance between automating and freeing up our time, but also being able to do it safely and share the right information. So the last thing I will address and is virtual reality. And we have a very, very active virtual reality program, actually. When I say that, it's about utilizing the technology to treat patients. And sure, it started with things like pain and depression and anxiety, but it's well into even inpatient settings. And Brennan Spiegel, who's a GI doctor, kind of has been leading this, and he runs a conference every year, one of the biggest conferences in LA called VMed. So this year it's VMed 25. It's an international conference. I wish I'd put the link here, but you can easily find it. Looking at applications of virtual medicine in the clinical environment, and we use it for all kinds of inpatient, outpatient diseases, and are continuously trying to find where you can apply these, reprogramming the brain, if you will, to have an impact on what patients feel and their symptoms. And again, as I said, pain is an obvious one. A lot of good test cases, anxiety, depression, but it's going into the realm of other things like GI problems and neurological and others. So this one is leaning more on the mental health, and so I'll probably leave you with a little video of our collaboration with Apple to bring sort of AI-driven software.
Created and tested by clinicians at Cedars-Sinai, Zaya has been trained by experts in many forms of therapy. She's a gateway to unburdening your mind without judgment and safeguarding your private thoughts with discretion. She's always there, ready to listen, understand, and help. Zaya transforms the ordinary into extraordinary, to magically bring you into worlds that enhance your therapeutic experience and take you beyond healing into new levels of growth and awareness in ways never before possible. Zaya is always there, ready to listen, to engage, and to talk about what matters most to you. So, how can I help?
That one's always cool. I can see it so many times. We were one of the early adopters of types of technology. Now you're seeing others in the industry using. I'll stop here. I want to thank the Ministry of Technology and Information and Communication and all the amazing organizers. I will have a little chance to kind of walk around. I've had today to see what's happening here in Colombia and in South America around technology. And I see a lot of youth. I see a lot of promise. And I know you had to bear with me not speaking Spanish. I hope the translation was okay and that some of the information was helpful to you. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.